In this lesson, we're going to create the details of our grill. All right, so let's select the front bumper. Well, it's actually going to select the entire car. You know, now might be a good idea to go ahead and separate out these pieces. I'm going to separate out just the grill for right now. Let me select this element mode. Let's select just the grill, and then we're going to go down and detach this. Let's give it a name. Let's call it bumper underscore F for front. And then you can separate out the other pieces if you want to, but I'm not going to do that just yet. Now with this piece selected, let's go ahead and apply a symmetry modifier. And then let's also apply the turbo smooth. Now the symmetry is not in the correct position. Let's go to Z there. There we go. And let's add the turbo smooth. Okay, so that comes in. Let's turn on isoline display. Bump that up to like 3 iterations. All right, so this is going to make it a little bit easier to work with. Let's go to our front view. Let's select the belly pan, right-click, hide selection. Actually, let's just hide unselected. No, that's going to get rid of our reference image. Sorry about that. Let's do Shift-Control-I to select the, or actually Control-I to select the inverse. Right-click, hide selection. So that way it'll keep your reference image. Let's go to vertex mode, and let's select these vertices right here along the bottom edge of that, and we're going to pull that down until it meets this point here. But you'll notice I still have my constraints turned on, so turn that off. Pull that down. It might help to show end result too, so you can kind of see what that's looking like. And you can see that it's giving this really shallow curve, and it doesn't look that great. So what I want to do at this point is I want to add a loop, and I'm going to add this loop right here toward the front edge of that point. Notice how that comes down to a point now, and it looks much better. If I hit Alt-X, you can still see that we're missing a little bit of that curve. So I'm going to add another loop right about here, and then I'm going to take those points and pull that back up. So then that's going to bring that curve in, and we're just going to match that to our reference image. So now you should have something that looks like this. Okay, you've got that point in there. And then now we can start building the slats for our grill. This is going to be done pretty easily by just adding in a couple of boxes. The grill on this part, let's just take a look at our reference image. It's kind of hard to see with the reference image. We can't necessarily see, or I should say the reference image in 3ds Max. We can't really see how that's supposed to be shaped. Is that supposed to be flat on the front, or is it rounded? It's actually flat, okay, on the front of that. So let's go ahead and build that. Let's create our first box right here in the center of this. And I'm going to create one, and then I'll just duplicate it down. So with this box created, it should look something kind of like that. We'll put it into a rough position. Let's set our X value to 0, so that way it's centered up there. And with that, let's start to modify its shape. Let's convert it to editable poly. Let's take these polygons across the top, bottom, and the back and delete those out. And then let's take these vertices along the back and push those forward just to kind of thin that up a little bit. We don't need it to be extremely long or anything like that. Now I do want to actually take the bumper of that. I do want to take these polygons that are along the back side of that. So let's select this polygon, hold shift. That should go all the way around the lip there. Let's grab our move tool, and let's just pull that straight back in the Y. Give that a little bit more thickness there. And I'm going to add another loop right here along the back side. So that'll kind of harden that up there. All right, so should have something that looks kind of like that. I think I may have gotten a little hasty with the movement. I think I pulled it back just a little too far. Maybe something like that. Let's add that loop back in. I was trying to get greedy with that amount of space in there. So it happens. All right, so with this, you'll notice that in our reference image, it's got a little bit of a curvature here. Sorry about that. Let's take that out of there. Got a little bit of a curvature here, and so we want to make sure that we get that detail. Let's build it at just a low resolution, and then we'll add the high poly to that. So let's go to edge mode, select the edges right here in the center, and let's do connect. Let's do 3 segments in that. We're going to take those 3 segments and we're going to pull those back in the Y a little bit, and then we're just going to take this middle segment and pull it just a little bit further so it kind of has this crescent moon shape. Then we're going to go into Edit, Swift Loop. Let's add in some loops across these corners. And we're going to add those in. We're going to try to stay as closely as possible at about the same distance from all the other cuts that we've made to the corner. And then, with that, if we come in and we add a Turbo Smooth modifier, let's actually center the pivot on that. Let's add our Turbo Smooth modifier. You'll see that that's been added. Turn on Isoline Display, bump that up to 3. So you get this nice clean shape here. Really quickly, let's go to our front view. Let's make sure that we have enough space. It needs to go all the way up into this area here. So I'm going to center that up a little bit more and then scale it in the Y. So that way it cuts through that and it gives me the right shape there. Now, in the front view, let's hold down Shift. Let's drag that off to the left, and let's try to center it up on that piece there. And then we're going to make instances of this. So that way, if I change the shape of one, it's going to change the shape of the others. Let's see, we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 copies of that. So we have the 1, so if we need 9 copies, we're just going to go 1 below that, so we'll hit OK. It's made all of those. You can see that my distance seems to be a little off. Not really sure how that happened, but I'm going to go ahead and just trust this equal distance that I've created. Not really sure how that happened in my reference image, but that's no big deal. Now all I have to do at this point is go ahead and just scale these down. So if I scale this down to match, notice that it's not changing the scale of the others. Whenever you change the global scale, that's not going to affect your instance. Okay. Let's pull that down. Only changing the physical vertices of the object will change the instance. So now let's go ahead and grab our Move tool, and I'm going to pull this back until it's inside of that. Okay. May have to change the scale of that just a little bit more. And we're going to pull that in. And if you go to your top view, you can actually hit F3. And you can kind of get an idea of what the curvature should be. So if you select it, you can start to pull that back and kind of see your curvature. And this is kind of where we get a little bit of a creative freedom, making our adjustments on our own. There's nothing in our reference image that's in 3ds Max that we can, really match this to. So we're just going to pull them back a little bit by a little bit. And there we go. So now we have our shape. Now one thing that I want to change about this is I don't really like how the top of it is just perfectly straight. I want to flare that out a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the original. Okay. Let's go to our front view. Let's hit F3, and I'm going to add a loop to these. So if I go to Edit, Swift Loop, let's add a loop right here at the top. And then let's add one here at the bottom. Notice that that's changing throughout the rest of these. And then if I go to vertex mode, I can take the top vertex and the bottom set of vertices and scale those in the Y. Notice how it's scaling all of those. So you get something that looks kind of like that. And so we get a little bit of a taper on that. So you can kind of see how that's tapering and kind of breaking up that overall shape. If you go to your front view, if you are just not happy with that, let's say that we want to bring this down a little bit. So I can see that taper on both of these. I can go ahead and do that. Okay, and then we'll scale this. And just making some adjustments. All right, so now the final piece that we want to work with here is going to be that grill, or the mesh that's behind the grill. Okay, not necessarily behind this part here, but behind that kind of creates this screen here. So just making my final adjustments to the shape. Don't want to scale it too much in some of these. Okay, so it looks kind of like that. All right, very good. We need to get the other side of those. So what we can do is we can go ahead and duplicate them over if we wanted to do that. I should have done that early on, but it's no big deal. If you only do half of it, you can actually get this, the symmetrical part of this. Go ahead and right-click and delete the Turbo Smooth off of these, and that will delete it off of all the others. And then we're going to select this one. Let's hit Make Unique, and you'll notice that we can do that for all of these. So if we select all of these except for that first one, Make Unique, it's going to make it their own object. So let's take this one and let's attach these other pieces. Okay, just like that. And then I'm going to use symmetry to flip that over. But by adding symmetry to this, it's going to create another copy of this one, and I don't want that. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to grab element mode, so you can hit 5, select that middle one, and detach it. Okay, detach it as its own object. Don't worry about that. And then you'll see that the pivot point stays right on that first one. So now I can just type in symmetry, add that in. Let's do a flip on that. And there we go. We have our other ones, and they're perfectly in line with one another. If you want, you can go ahead and collapse it down or attach all of them together. Totally up to you. I'm going to right-click and convert it to editable poly. And then with this object selected, I'm going to attach that middle one. So now they're all one solid piece. And then add my Turbo Smooth back to that. And there we go. Go ahead and change your color and your material. And then we'll also rename it to Grill. And there we go. So now we have those pieces in there. We can go ahead and unhide all. And there we go. So now we've got that grill. And anytime that you want to make any changes to this, you're more than welcome to do that. Okay, so there we go. So in the next lesson, what I want to do is I want to build the mesh that we see underneath the bumper here. And so we'll go ahead and we'll talk about how to create that next. It's going to be very similar to the mesh that we created back here. So we'll get started with that next.